Good evening. Thank you for coming. Can everybody hear me in the back? I don't have a great voice that projects, so I'm sure the video will get me as well. So my name is Kevin Hawley. I'm treasurer for the district. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully this will give a little bit more information about what we're doing and where we've been. So this is the financial presentation for this evening. Before we really get into the meat of it, I really want to talk a little bit about what we've done in the past and what we've been part of so far. As we've talked about through this process, this has been a community-led process, and throughout the process we've had different things like a finance committee for what we're doing, what we call Building Tiger Nation, but basically the facilities plan. And before we jump into this graph, the way I like to look at the financing for the bonds in particular, to simplify it, I like to think of it like your home mortgage. So there's a couple things that can affect the payment, and one in particular is interest rates. So as everybody's aware, we have a ballot on the levy in November. Part of that is for operating, but another part of that is for basically the facilities plan. And as you can understand, we can't necessarily look at debt or issue debt until we actually pass a levy. And so there are some things that we have to look at. We look at future projections with interest rates, where they are currently, and try to walk through that process. So as we've talked about a community-led plan, one of the pieces that we did do was a finance committee. So our finance committee basically met roughly around October through March. And as you can see here, so we're a AA rated organization. You can see interest rates. Can everybody see that okay? Somewhat. Make it bigger. Do my best. Get it bigger. Okay, well, I'll just explain it. So basically, you see the graph all the way at the top where it's almost touching is 4.5%. The bottom is the calendar. So if you look at December, if you can see my little red dot, that's basically October, and there is March. So really we ended roughly in February. So when the Finance Committee made their recommendations to the board, one of the assumed interest rates we were looking at currently at that point in time was 5%. So you can basically see in February it was about 4.25%. So basically the reason why we looked at 5% is because we do have to make sure that there's room, because we don't pass a levy until November. We don't typically put out debt until maybe March. So there's a little bit of a time frame. So the original recommendation was February. We were looking at assumed interest rates about 5%. So when the board made their decision, and truthfully, we decided to try to extend that as far as possible so we could see where interest rates were. It was July. You can see where July is, about 3.5%. So again, we were using interest rates at 4%, so we gave ourselves a little bit of a buffer. As you can tell right now where interest rates are, so this is basically, you probably can't see the date on this, but it's the end of August. Current interest rates are just below 3%. So basically, when you look at a bond and we look at the community, the auditor will not charge you more than what it does to pay off the bond. So when you look at ballot language, there are assumptions in there. One of them is interest rate. So right now, the interest rate that's currently on the ballot language is 4%. We can't necessarily change the ballot language at this point, but there's potential opportunities that we do have. So just think of it that way. If you have your mortgage, if you have a lower interest rate, you pay less. It's not necessarily that the principal changes, but that the interest rate amount changes the amount that you pay on a monthly basis. So basically, what does that mean? So because interest rates have dropped, it provides a unique opportunity to the community to gradually implement taxes over time. Basically, the bond and the permanent improvement, which is basically the facilities portion of the levy, may be deferred for up to 3 years after the financing. The operating portion will start originally because we really do need money to continue to make sure that we provide the great the great education that we provide to our students. So operating taxes would start immediately, but the bond and the permanent improvement portions could actually be deferred. So the question ultimately is, what are the actual collection dates? So typically, if it's a normal levy, they would start being implemented in January of 2020. In this particular case, portion of it will be in 20, 21, and then 22. So I'm sure everybody wants to know, what does that look like? So it's not necessarily a third, a third, a third, but if you look at the millage portion, so the millage right now on the levy is 16.78 mils. In year one, it would be 6.95 mils, and you can't necessarily go beyond the hundredth, so it's 4.92 mils and 4.91 mils going forward. So how does that affect you? So we've been talking about basically $49 a month when we're looking at a $100,000 home on the current ballot language. In 2020, it would be roughly $20 in year one, and then it would be an extra $14.35 in year two, which gets you to $34.62. And in 2022, another $14.32, which gets you up to the $48.94, which is the $49 per month that we've quoted so far. So that's where we are right now. So this is potentially an opportunity. We really do feel like the need is now. Our concern is going back to interest rates. We're at historically low interest rates. If you look at the bond market, it's not necessarily just historically low, they are historic. So the concern is, as interest rates start to increase, that the potential cost will also increase. So our hope and goal with this is to potentially gradually increase the taxes or the collections so that it could potentially minimize some of the burden to the taxpayers. So that's all I've got.
Do you have any questions or comments for Mr. Hall?
So Kevin, the 1% drop in the interest rate over the life of the fund, that represents roughly how much of a savings over time?
Yeah, so that 1% interest rate that we've looked at so far, so in interest cost, it's about $41 million. So
that's significant.
It's very significant.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, you're fine. I think the only comment to be made, to be honest with you, is, as I've said before, we went through this process over, however you want to look at it, a solid 2 years, 2 to 4 years, if you want to look at it that way, involved, however many inputs, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of inputs from community members, consultants, specialists, teachers, students, parents, everybody. They were well aware of the numbers that were involved with each of the options. There were bigger options, there were smaller options that didn't work. And the numbers that are before you are the numbers that in the plan that the community came to us and said that, one, we needed, they wanted, and they were willing to get behind. Okay. Our job as a board was to approve that, make sure it made sense. Our job as a board was to figure out how to pay for it. So constantly looking for ways to figure things out. So, again, this is 3 years. This still gets you to 16.78% after 3 years, but hopefully in some small way it eases the burden on the front end. Okay. I would like to say thanks for the presentation. Thanks for the people who've been putting the financial inputs together. It's nice to see a little something. But again, this is what the community came with. We're just trying to figure out a way to ease the burden a little bit. Yeah. Anything else?
I have a question for Mr. Hawley. So this is the presentation that we were able to see at the, we first saw these graphs at the work session the other night.
That's correct.
And I just want to be sure that I'm understanding correctly that this delays the collection of the bond issue and the permanent improvement levy. It does not change the nature of them. The operating levy is still a continuing levy. The bond issue is still a defined length bond issue. This won't change the length of that in any way.
Correct.
And it won't delay construction in any way. We would still be able, with the passage of it, to begin to make a definite plan, to make definite drawings of buildings, and go out for bid on buildings. So it wouldn't delay the construction plan by delaying the tax collection this way.
Correct. That's correct.
And no changes to the ballot language
Yes, sir.
is required,
No, no changes.
or even allowed, for that matter. All right, a lot of confusion out there, self-inflicted, not self-inflicted. Permanent levy, 118 million of the 165 million is a 37-year bond issue. It's a very long time. It is not permanent. The other 40-something is permanent. So 71% of the 16.78 mils is not permanent. All right. Anything else? All right. Good. Mr. Holland, please.
So the resolution.
Need a motion?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So I would move that we approve the resolution of intent. Seconded.
So moved by Dr. Loren, seconded by Ms. Pettit. All right, now Mr. Holland.
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Fortune?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Mr. Jarvis?
Yes.
Dr. Loren?
Yes.
All right, resolution passes. Unanimous. All right, need a motion to adjourn?
I move.
In a second? Second, Mr. Fortune. All right, Mr. Holloway, please.
Mr. Fortune?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Mr. Jarvis?
Yes.
Dr. Loren?
Yes.
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
All right, thanks for being here, everybody. Oh, and I know the meeting's over, but we have Wednesday, Thursday, 12th is, what time? 7 p.m. at the high school auditorium. Questions can be submitted.
Yep, to Suzanne, what's the questions at Loveland School? And if you can't find that, you can email me or Suzanne quickly. So we've been taking people's questions that they have submitted and making sure those are present in the presentation.
All right, encourage everybody to show up. Again, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Am I feeling